How we doing, everybody? So this is my new series where I'm going to start going through and start doing actual reviews like I said this channel was going to be for. So I know I said I was going to do Game of Thrones, and I am. That is currently being worked on. I have it in the works, but for now I thought I'd do this show as a bit of a practice as well. I'll probably do Game of Thrones alongside this eventually, but I'll do a few episodes of this first just to get an idea on how this is all going to work. Alright, so this show is called Orange is New Black. You've probably heard of it, even if you haven't watched it. It got pretty good advertisement, it was pretty well reviewed, and overall it was actually a really good show. So it's been everywhere. It's been through the papers and TV, and it's not exactly a new show either. Like, it's just finished, and I think it's like season 5 or 7 or something. It got a fair way. It's been on TV for quite a few years. Like, this show started a year or so before I met my girlfriend. Like, some of our earliest dates were getting pizza and going home and watching a few episodes of this. So it's been around a while. Like, I've been with her for 5 years now. But it's a show about this chick called Piper, and she goes to prison. And funny enough, the most interesting thing about this entire show is that it's based on a book that was written by a lady called Piper Kerman, who the main character is based off. And this lady really did go to prison, and she documented a lot of her experiences and people that she met there and stories from the place. And apparently it's fascinating. I do need to get her book. I would actually like to read through her book. I think it'd be really interesting to hear and see in the book how many characters are real to their book perspective of what she saw compared to the show. Because obviously the show took all of her ideas and characters and they sort of dramatized it or over-exaggerated bits and pieces to make good TV. And they added characters that didn't exist in her story just to add good TV again, but that's fine. You know, it's Hollywood, you need to be able to sell it. You still get the idea across of what she was trying to show. How corrupt, badly run, and just horrible the prison system is. Like, I get it. They're prisoners. They're not there for luxury and 5-star motels, but, you know, they're still human. There are things that go on with these prisons where you kind of like, even criminals in some cases deserve a lot better than this. But anyway, that's a whole other argument. But, so this show is based on Piper Kerman. No, Piper Chapman, as she's called in the show. So it starts off with her, and she's this blonde lady. I'll show you a picture of her. I'll have pictures rolling at the moment. Just so you know, when I'm recording this, I don't actually have the pictures in front of me. I've got them all in a folder, and I've got to put it all together in editing. So if I seem weird sometimes, like I don't know what's on screen, it's because I actually don't yet. I haven't put it there yet. So give me a break. I'm getting there. But, so it starts off, you get a really nice scene, well, a really kind of weird scene. It's a happy scene, I suppose is a better way to put it, of her in the shower. And she's in the shower with, at first, this bloke who comes up behind her and gives her a kiss, and, you know, that's her fiancé, and it's quite obvious they're a couple. But then it gets a little bit weird because the very next scene shows her in the shower with a dark-haired woman, who we later find out is Alex, but she comes up behind her and gives her a kiss in the shower. So then you're sort of left like, oh, is she a lesbian? Is she straight? I guess she's bisexual. Is she with both these people? Is one of these a flashback? Well, it doesn't really show you, but you get told pretty quick. Like, it is a flashback with Alex. And with the fiancé, I'm not actually sure. That could be a modern scene, or it could be just her in general talking with a scene from her life. But yeah, she is in the shower, and she's talking about how the shower is her happy place. She loves to be clean, and it's where she loves to be. And then she said, you hear the prison alarm system in the background basically go off. This big beep, and it's, you know, telling people to get to the kitchens, or no, I think it's saying to get to orientation. But anyway, it happens, and then she says, was my favourite place. And then you see this scene of her standing in the shower, basically with hardly any water pressure in what looks like a pretty shitty old shower. Like, the curtain is half see-through at the top where the faces are, and then it's like cloth at the bottom, but it's like half torn in between. Because obviously it's a government facility, so, you know, they don't get that much funding, so this curtain's probably been there for 30 years. And then you see this black chick who you later on find out her name is Tasty, and she has her whole own story, but for the first episode or two, she's not a big deal. She just sort of comes up, and she stands there and starts being like, come on, get out. And, you know, she hasn't been in there very long, and she doesn't want to get out, but she just says, I'm coming, give me 1 second, and then she has to go. And it's just sort of showing the reality of prison versus real life. Like, she loves showers in real life, but in prison, Even a shower isn't relaxing. You've got showers on either side. Can't even stretch your arms out in it without touching essentially another person in another shower. You've got people outside waiting to come in. It's shit water pressure. It shows everyone wearing flip-flops, or thongs as we call them in Australia, on their feet. Because, as one of the characters says later, there's wicked mould growing down there. And wicked fungus, she says. Wicked fungus growing in the showers. Which again shows you, government facility. They can't afford proper cleaners, so the prisoners actually do the cleaning for a very low pay. And obviously they're not given very good chemicals, probably for multiple reasons actually. For hygienic reasons and safety reasons. You can't give these prisoners proper bleach and proper levels of cleaning equipment because they'll either snort it, drink it, or use it against each other. Which, you can't have. If one prisoner essentially waterboards someone with bleach and gets them killed, that's a lot of paperwork and crap and cases and firings for prisons. They don't need that. So yeah, you have that shower scene, and then you have a bit of a flashback where it shows Piper back with her husband, and she's back outside the prison, and they're heading towards the prison, and she's going on about how she's not ready for it. They're in the car, and she's so stressed out talking about all the books she's read, as you would be. I can't even imagine going to prison, how horrible it must be. It's completely flips your life upside down. But, yeah. So she's heading to prison, they show this sign. Federal Corrections Institute Litchfield, which is in New York. I'm not American, so I can't really speak for... because I know each state in America has very different laws. Especially regarding how their prisons are run and how long you go to prison and what for and all that stuff. So I'm not from America, so I can't really speak for whether New York is a really bad state to be a prisoner in or whether it's one of the better ones. I imagine it's probably one of the worst ones considering New York has a huge population, so the funding for the prison and the population, well, the prison population would be quite high, and I imagine the funding is probably not that high. So it's probably not one of the best ones. It's probably definitely, like the show sort of gives you an image of, a very underfunded system. And then the next scene is they're parked outside the prison, about to go in, and Piper is just freaking out. She complaining she looks like shit. Fiance's laughing at her about how you're worried about how you look right now, and well, she is, but in reality she's just falling apart because you would be. Anybody would be. I don't care if you're a female or male or what. If you've never been to prison before and you suddenly have to go for... I think she has to go for 18 months or something. It's not a short sentence. It's almost 2 years. And, yeah, she's freaking out. And basically, in that scene, she also takes her engagement ring off and hands it to her fiancé, who looks really confused, almost hurt for a minute. And she says, I can't take it in with me because she's going to self-surrender and go to prison. And he just sort of, oh, okay, and he has to take it because prison. You can't have an engagement ring. You'll either get shanked by someone in there for it, if they let you in with it, or you'll just have it taken by the guards and you may never see it again because they'll just claim it wasn't found in evidence. You never know what's going to happen, It'll go missing. You can't take it in there with you. No jewelry. So, they go into the prison, and then you get this weird, they're talking, and you get a flashback scene. After she self-surrenders. They go to the desk, they self-surrender, and then she's sitting at the, in the chairs with her fiancé waiting, because the guards are all surprised, oh, we didn't know this was today, and they're on the phone, nothing's set up. You can tell these people were not ready, they didn't know she was coming, it's all over the place. Right, so, they go and sit down, and when they sit down, they have a flashback, where you see Piper and her fiancé, whose name is Larry, are sitting on a chair, on a couch, and their family's there. And she's obviously, it doesn't go through the whole story, but it's showing them telling their family the story. Because obviously he's found out she has to now go to prison, so now she has to break it to her family and her husband's family, or fiance's family. So they sit them all down, and she basically is telling them the story. We come in on this scene where she's saying, so I never carried drugs, just money. And it's, drug money. If you've even watched a few documentaries or cop shows, you know how much money is involved in the drug trade. She carried serious amounts of money. I believe it. They show later in this episode that she was carrying something like $5,000 in a suitcase just for trading heroin. And it's not even it's still pretty big money. She carried it through. She skipped customs. Like, it's pretty big stuff. But I do love that in this scene, her parents, basically, the thing they're most shocked about is her telling the story about her being with this chick named Alex, who was the chick you saw in the shower scene at the start. And she basically says, well, I was with Alex. She says she was in love with Alex because she was a lesbian at the time, and Alex was a big drug baron. She was in charge of transporting loads of drugs. She wasn't in charge of it. The drug baron was her boss, but she was one of the best recruiters and movers of it. So she was one of the top people in the organization. So she made a lot of money. And Piper fell in love with her because, as she said, after college, she got hit on by this chick. She got taken all around the world. All she had to do was carry a few bags of money through airports. It was stressful and she freaked out. But then after that, they had money. I mean, imagine doing big drug trades and getting like 30, 40 grand handed to you and then suddenly being like, oh, I guess we'll just go drinking. We'll just buy this car. We'll just go stay at this resort because you just have all this money constantly flowing in. But yeah, so I still love that in this scene. The thing they're most freaked out about is what happened to the money. And she just basically says, I wasn't really in it for the money, as in, she was just in it for the excitement. And the other thing they're most concerned about is, you were a lesbian? I don't know why. I just find that hilarious that the whole, you're going to jail for nearly 2 years, I was involved in an international drug trade. You're a lesbian? Is the thing they cook for that conversation. But anyway, it stops the flashback, goes back to the present, and basically Larry's ran outside to post her last media thing on her social media, her last post before she goes into prison properly. She wasn't allowed to post it because the guard leans over the desk and basically says, no, you've surrendered now. No phone for you. You're in prison. Even though you're not in yet, you can't use it. So he runs out to do it, and when he runs out, she's trying to say to this guard who comes out and says, come with me. Because she's like, all your paperwork's in order. Come with me. We're going to take you through and get you some uniforms and stuff. And she's like, oh, can we just wait 1 minute? Larry will be right back. She wants to say goodbye to him, and this lady is not having it. Like, it's quite clear at this point that you're just another prisoner now. They don't care that you self-surrendered. They don't care what your crime was. You're no different. You're a number. And you know what? In their position, I don't blame them. They're probably very low-paid employees of the government. Their job's probably horrendous. They would get yelled abuse every day by all the prisoners, constantly being paranoid. Like, it would be hard to not learn to just dehumanize and not take them personally when you're dealing with prisoners. So she comes over, and as you can see in this picture, she's standing there. Get your ass over here, Chapman, now. Because in prison, they always use last names. I don't really know why. They don't really ever go into exactly why they call her Chapman instead of Piper the whole time. But they do it with everyone. All the guards and all of the prisoners are all going by their last name all the time. And I don't really know why. It's never really explained. They just say we use last names here, and that's sort of the end of it. That's kind of just a stone-cold rule, apparently. I'd be interested to know if in prison that's true. I kind of feel like it would be, but I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, Larry does make it in just in time, and they hug and kiss, and the guard says to her, who's this? And Piper says, this is my fiancé, and the guard just very harshly looks down at her folder, ticks off a bit of paper, and says, alright, good luck with that. Come with me. And she's like shocked, like, what do you mean good luck with that? Obviously she's a guard. She's seen many fiancés and couples that were happy together. One of them comes in, and if you're there for a few years, even the best relationships are going to struggle to have 3 or 4 years apart in a prison. Like, that's going to strain even the best relationships. So I can understand she's probably seen hundreds of them fall apart. Basically, she gets given a uniform, and it's very basic. It's your very stock standard, cheap, crappy uniform that's probably mass-produced and stored in giant warehouses, and shoes that are basically the same. So she's given these shoes, and she's told, this is going to be your uniform, come with me. Then we get another weird flashback where it shows basically Alex again, the lesbian from her past, the big drug runner, with her, because basically the guard says strip, because she's telling her to take her clothes off so we can put on that uniform and get you into prison, because your clothes are now part of your evidence. They'll be filed away. You won't get to have them when you're in prison. You'll get them when you get out. And then we get a flashback of her basically being with Alex, confirming that it wasn't just a shower scene. They were a lesbian couple, because at this point you don't know everything yet. But yeah, you get this quick scene of them together. Then you get a very dehumanizing scene of, it flicks back after that quick flashback with Alex. It flicks back to Piper, now naked, standing in front of the guard. The guard's patting her down. She's got her mouth open with a thing on her tongue and shining a torch in her mouth saying, open your mouth, move your tongue, because obviously, you know, people sneak all sorts of things into prison. So they have to search them in and around their tongue and their teeth, make sure they're not bringing drugs in or bringing anything else in. Then they lift your arms up and she's standing there naked while the guard's fully dressed, just patting her down, checking her over. And the most humiliating thing is she's told, turn around, so her back is to the guard, and then she's told, squat down, spread your cheeks with your hands, and cough. And I never used to understand that, but I actually got told by a nurse in the psych ward when I used to work there that the reason they do that, because they do much the same thing in psych, is because if you shove something in your ass, which they do, because it's obviously, if you can't hide it in your clothes and they're going to search your body, it's one of the only spots, much like your mouth, where you can put something potentially if you want to sneak it in that badly. So they make her squat down, hold her cheeks and cough. And apparently, because when you squat, the way your muscles sit, it's apparently impossible for you to be able to clench your muscles to hold something in your ass while it's open and you're squatting, and when you cough. Apparently the combination of all those things makes the muscles, like, basically just release. It makes them stay released and anything in there will come out. It's an old trick. Obviously it doesn't have 100% win rate because, well, you know, people still get things into prison, but for the most part it's pretty safe. You'll get most things that way. But yeah, dehumanizing. Like, imagine, she's not really, like, Piper is not an addict. She's never been that into drugs. She's never really dealt much with drug dealers. She dealt with Alex. Alex dealt with the drug dealers without her around. Alex just took her shopping. She took her drinking. Piper hasn't really seen the dark side of crime. She hasn't been beaten by police. She hasn't been arrested. She's just your average person who's come from a middle-class family, lives a good life, has always had decent amount of money. This is the first time she's probably ever been treated, you know, pretty badly, like dehumanizing. And that would be a shock to the system to go through something like that. You know, after that, she's seen dressed again in her prison uniform now and standing in front of a screen where they're obviously going to take a picture. But they're struggling to get the picture to work because the guards, as you can sort of see with this picture, is, the guards, I'm sure they're not bad people, but, like, they're making it quite clear. These are not your top students. These are not your mass graduates. These are your average, everyday workers. These people are paid, like I said before, low-grade pay, government job. Like, yeah, it's not bad, but it's not great. They don't care that much about it, and they're not very well trained because the funding's not there. And it shows. Like, this guy can't get the picture to go because he's struggling with the laptop. Because he doesn't know how to use it, because obviously he's not trained to use any of this stuff. They just sort of learn as they go. Sometimes it breaks down, and they hope they can fix it. It's not that important a scene, but it's a scene that sort of just gives you an insight into, yeah, this is the prison system. Something as simple as taking a picture on a camera is complicated because no one has training. Then you're taken to see a particularly weird character that I both relate to and find very strange and unrelatable at the same time, if that makes sense. You'll see more about him as the show goes on, but in this first scene, he's very much seen to be a very, like, compelling character that you can trust. He's someone you can relate with. Oh, sorry, just needed some water. Yeah, his name's Healy, and he's the counselor, Mr. Healy. Sam Healy. But, he is a very strange man. He comes off, like I said, in this scene, he comes off as a quite genuine person who really does care. And maybe on some level he does. Because he comes off as, you know, what did you do here? And she says, oh, I moved money for a drug dealer 10 years ago once. And he kind of smiles at it. He's like, you know, he just looks at it and says, what's the statute of limitations? Which I don't know exactly, but from my understanding is basically, you know, how long can they charge you on that? How long are you here for? And she basically says she's here, I believe it's 18 months. I could be wrong, but it's under 2 years. It's a bit under 2 years. It's not that long, but it is a long time. And he sort of puts his glasses down and just says, I'll never understand this place. He says, I've been here for years. I've seen people that have stabbed and murdered people come in and out within 4 months. I've seen people that have accidentally hit their mailman reversing their car in here for 5 years. He said, I don't understand the system any more than you do when I work here. Which I thought was funny, because it's kind of true. You watch news stories of reality, like, locally we had a bus driver. Yeah, he went the wrong way. He shouldn't have. What he did was wrong. He crashed his bus into a bridge. The bridge was too low for the bus to go under. A lot of people were on board, but no one was hurt. His bus was damaged, and he got like 2 or 3 years jail. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, I get what he did was wrong, but it's like, come on, community service or something? Maybe a fine? Like, in the end of the day, no one was hurt. No one was even injured. Absolutely no one died. Like, I get what he did was wrong and stupid, but that seems harsh. Especially when you see other cases on the news of people that break into houses, sometimes rape and murder, and they get like 9 months. When this guy that had an accident and didn't hurt anyone, genuine accident, 3 years. So Healy's right. In this respect, it seems to be a thing. No one knows how the system works. It's ridiculous. The system doesn't seem to have any set standards. Even the workers within it are just utterly confused at it all. But, you know, this whole thing makes him come across as a very caring guy, and he asks her, you know, gives us some advice to try and look after yourself, keep your head down, don't get involved with the gangs. Your easiest way to get through the place will be to stay out of everyone's drama and just get by, do your time. Which is, you know, good advice. If you can follow it when you're in prison, I'm sure that is good advice. Unfortunately, life doesn't always work that way. But yeah, he stamps her form, which does a really clever scene where it shows the forms being stamped, and then the exact same forms, without the stamp, are suddenly in a living room, and it's a flashback to Larry and her fiancé. Obviously, this is where he's just found out. She's obviously gotten the letter saying you're going to jail and all this stuff, and she's like, oh shit, now I have to tell my fiancé what I did 10 years ago and why I'm going to prison right now. Because imagine that. Imagine you and your partner were going fine. Like, I've been with my partner for 5 years. I can't imagine having to explain to her that I made a mistake 10 years ago and for that I'm going to prison for 2 years. Like, that would be harsh. And it'd be extremely confusing for her. Like, that would be a very hard thing to go through. But yeah, he's really upset, obviously. And she's upset, obviously, because she knows what she did was stupid. It's years later. That's the thing, it's a decade later. It's not like she got caught doing it and went to prison. She did it, stopped doing it, lived her life for 10 years, built a business, got engaged, made friends, got an apartment, and then got punished for it and taken away from that life she had built. So it's hard for her, but it's also hard for him, which is, yeah, I can understand. And it flashes back to the prison. Basically, you know, I think the essence of it is supposed to be that you go in, you get your clothes, you get brought to the prison proper, because it's like you go to the admin building where you're let in, then you get in the van and you're driven to the proper prison. And in the prison, she's walking in, getting orientation from one of the ladies there, who is a prisoner, by the way. But prisoners do these jobs inside American prisons, from my understanding, because they get paid. They get paid very little, it's like 10, 20 cents an hour, but they get that money, which they can then spend on commissary, which is like an in-prison shop, where they can get goodies and little things. So it's meant to be a system that encourages them to work, but in reality it's just because the prison system doesn't have enough money to afford drivers and guards and enough staff to do all the things that need doing. So they just, instead of giving these people that would need proper salaries, proper bonuses, proper weekend wages and all that sort of stuff, it's cheaper just to get a prisoner who's already there, offering them 20 cents an hour, and since they literally have no other choice, they're going to say yes, because they need that 20 cents. And, you know, it's cheaper to pay them, a couple of dollars a week than it is to pay essentially what they make in a month, an hour, to a regular staff member. It's all just a product of an underfunded system. But these people, it's meant, they hide it behind, you know, it's giving them meaning and it's rehabilitation, but it's not, it's just a symptom of a bad system. But anyway, during this, she's walking in and she's got these couple people. Like I said, there's Lorna, who, she's kind of pretty. She's seen as being like a short, kind of Italian, I think she's meant to be Italian chick. She's short, she's kind of pretty, she's got makeup on, and she's leading the way. She drove the van, she's one of the other side characters, but she's the one guiding them through. She's guiding Piper, a black chick, I think called Janine, who you'll find out more about later. She has her own episode, and you learn more about her as the show goes, but Janine, Piper, and Diaz. or Diaz is her last name, Dayanara Diaz it is, because Diaz is coming in, and then you see this lady start approaching. And it's kind of hilarious, this scene, because this lady walks right up, past Lorna, past Piper, towards Diaz, slaps her straight in the face, and then turns around and walks off. Doesn't say a word, and Lorna, the black chick, and Piper are all just kind of staring at Diaz like, do you know that woman? And she just like holds her face and turns around and says, yeah, that's my mother. And it's interesting the way they did that, because it's like, there are elements of society like that where not everyone gets the good life. Some people go through hell. Like, obviously, Piper is shocked at the thought that not only is it bad enough she's in prison, but her mother's in prison. Like, what kind of family is this? You can see it all over her face, but at the same time, it's hard. Like, that the mother, Diaz, not a great person, but again, there's an episode about her sort of showing why she is the way she is. Much as she's in the wrong, I also can't disagree that, her life didn't give her a whole lot of choices. And the daughter sadly ended up in that same spiral, and there's a lot of elements of society in Australia and America like that, where you have families that are just stuck in this rut. They've got family members that are criminals, they can't get out of all the connections, there's not enough support for them, and they can't get out, and then they end up in prison, and they end up knowing people in prison, and having family that they know in prison because they're all involved. And it is a sad situation, but it really shows, the difference between the Diazes and Piper right now in the prison is huge. Can't even be understated how different their life circumstances were to end up here. But anyway, after that, they get led to a room. Basically, Lorna she leaves Janine, the black chick, outside because they're going elsewhere, but she comes into the room, introduces them to a few ladies in there, and brings in Diaz and Piper and says, these ladies will show you through. She puts Diaz over to Mendoza, who is another Spanish lady, which I'll show you a picture in a minute. And then she turns around to Piper and does something that, even when I first watched it, I was surprised. She hands her a toothbrush and some soap and basically says, here you go, they don't give you any, but we look after our own. And Piper just kind of looks at her and says, our own? Because it really sounds like a racial thing when she implies it. And it is. It totally is, because in the prison system, and it kind of makes sense. As Lorna says, she says, don't get PC on me. It's not a race thing. It's a tribe thing. It's survival. And I kind of understand that, It's not that the white girls hate the black girls or the black girls hate the white girls. It's that they just look after each other. A lot of the black girls come from similar communities. A lot of the white girls come from similar communities. A lot of the Spanish girls come from similar communities. They all understand each other more. Not just based on race, but based on their social economic standing of their families. Like, they're more likely to have more in common. Doesn't mean they can't mix and match. It just means for the most part they stick with their own because that's more in common, which makes them more comfortable. It's kind of weird how prison still runs like that. Prison almost runs like segregation from like the 1950s. Not on purpose, but it sort of does. Not quite as bad, but it is there. But I did love the whole our own. But then it goes over and you see Mendoza start speaking Spanish to Diaz, and Diaz says, oh, I don't speak Spanish. And Diaz just looks at her like, you don't speak Spanish? Your mother don't teach you Spanish? What good is she? And then it's actually really funny. She turns to Piper and says, white girl, you speak Spanish? And Piper just replies in fluent Spanish. And Mendoza turns to Diaz and says, see? Fucking white girl speaks Spanish. It's kind of hilarious to me. Like, I don't really, I know in America the Spanish thing is a big thing. A lot of Americans hate that people speak Spanish because it's an English country and most people there speak English and everything in the country is based around English, which it is. But, in saying that, there is a large part of the population that speaks Spanish, and it's not just immigrants like a lot of people would have you say. There's also people that lived there before all of that. Like, Florida was a part of the Spanish Empire. So was Texas and large parts of New Mexico and Nevada and all these regions where there were large Spanish populations of Spanish settlers that ended up being forced into America. And their communities have continued to grow just like the rest of Americans. So it's hard. Most Americans do speak English, yes, but there is a large speaking Spanish part. And they're not new. They're not migrants. It isn't the same as Indians or Muslims or something like this. This is a community that's been there pretty much since the start of America. So it's kind of hard. It's a touchy subject with a lot of people. You know, a lot of Spanish people don't want to speak English, and the English people get annoyed. But a lot of English people don't want to learn Spanish, even though you could argue they make up a sizable part of their history, and it should probably be a bilingual country. But I get it. I can't speak a second language, so I'd be annoyed if I had to learn a second. So I understand it. But yeah, this scene is funny. Like, I like that. The fucking white girl can speak it. But then we see another flashback after that, where it shows Piper, basically she's sitting in an airport. She comes out of a plane, and she's waiting for a bag, and everyone's left, and there's no more bags coming, and she goes over to the guy at the counter, and is like, where's my bag? And he says, oh, sometimes they get put on the wrong plane. You can just see Piper's so freaked out. He's like, just wait, it'll be on the next plane. As soon as it lands, they'll bring it through and you'll get it. And she's so stressed. It shows like a quick flash through of a few little quick scenes of her sitting around, obviously trying to show that time is passing. She's been there a while and she's getting very anxious, something stressing her out. She eventually gets her bag. She walks out. You see Alex there. Obviously, they've cut their hair and they've got a whole nother look to try and make themselves look a bit more unique so they're not as recognisable. And you find out from a quick conversation with Alex is, you know, Piper had never done this before. This was obviously the first time she moved money. And she was so stressed. Like, she says to Alex, I nearly bailed. I freaked out when my bag wasn't there. And you would. She's got $5,000 in the bag. You're not supposed to travel with that much money. Like, you know if the bag's not there, there's a good chance someone's picked it up or they've scanned it. You'd have 1,000 bad thoughts going through your head. Am I going to jail? Am I about to be arrested? Are they, you know, tagging it so they can watch who grabs it? You would be so paranoid. Especially if someone's never done it before, you would be extremely paranoid that you're about to get in big trouble. But, you know, she doesn't. She gets the bag, she walks out, and Alex is surprised. Like, why did you come from that way? You didn't come through customs. She says, oh, I must have gone through the wrong door. And she just smiles, and Alex says, that's brilliant. You just skipped customs and you've got the money. Let's go. And she kind of casually says, it's a good thing you didn't skip out with the bag. Or skip out before the bag came. Because you would have been killed. She just kind of casually drops, you know, drug barons don't like it when their money disappears and it's your fault. You would have been punished. And it's kind of like, oh God. Not only was she freaked out about what she just did, but she's also freaked out about the fact that she could have been killed had she not done it. Now she's involved. But then it goes back to the prison, and it shows her, this is her first meals. I think this is meant to be like lunch or dinner or something. And she's sitting at the benches, and it's basically set up like an old school cafeteria. And she sits down with Yoga Jones, she's called, which is like this old white lady. Never really says her age, but I always assume she's like 40s or 50s or something. And she's got the yoga body, and she's the spiritual chick. She's, you know, every show like this has to have the spiritual woman, and that's her. And she's talking to her, and she's trying to tell Piper all about, you know, try to think of this as a way of bettering yourself. It'll be over soon, and then your life will be better. Which is a nice sentiment. And then this lady sits down, and Yoga Jones turns to her and says, sister? And Piper freaks out. She's like, sister? As in nun? And she's like, oh, yes. The yoga chick tries to joke and say, oh, you know, this is the killer nun. But it's not, obviously. She says, you know, she tied herself to a pole at a nuclear facility. She's an avid protester, to the point of ridiculousness later on. Like, you'll see later, there is actually an episode all about her past, and the nun gets involved in way, way too many protests. I think she actually enjoyed being a protester more than a nun. She just used a nun as a status thing, rather than a career. But yeah, she meets them, and I think Piper starts to calm down. She's kind of like, okay, I've met some nice people. This is a nun. This is a yoga chick. I could live with this. And then straight after that, you know, Nikki sits down, and Lorna, you've met them before, the Italian chick. Nikki was in the room where she got introduced. Nikki's she's a drug addict. She was a drug addict. She's meant to be clean at this point, but I don't think she is. I don't remember, but yeah, she's a drug addict, so she's a bit all over the place. And then Red comes over, this chick here. And she's kind of the maternal figure of all the white women. Like, these are my girls, as she says. And she's the Russian chick. She runs the kitchen. She's the head woman. You go see her if you want things. She gets things done. You help her, she help you. She's pretty much the Russian mafia in there. But, yeah, she comes in and she's nice to everybody, asks them how their food is, and they're all happy, and she slips them all an extra yogurt, which is obviously like it's meant to be a treat, something special, and she gives them to them because like she runs the kitchen and this is the perks of being my friend. And she gives it to Piper and says, "Here you go." And Piper says, "What do I owe you for this?" And she says, "Don't worry about it. You're one of us. You're new. I'm just making you feel welcome." And she's so thankful. And she says, I'm so grateful. And then she starts smiling and says, "Thank you all." And they're all like nodding like it's nice. It's good to see you're one of us. And then Piper just sort of smiles and says, "The food here is terrible." And everyone's face just immediately drops. Like, even as a viewer, you kind of feel like Piper did. Like, you can just see it in their faces. They all acted this so well. Like, what did I just do? I fucked up. You can just see it all their faces. Like, the nun looks horrified. The yoga chick's like pretending she's not there. And Nikki looks utterly disappointed. And then Nikki turns to her after Red, she just sort of grabs her cup, leans over the nun and that, and says to Piper, "If you don't like the food, no problem," and walks off. And then Nikki turns to Piper and says, "That was an epic fuck up. Did I mention Red runs the kitchen?" So yeah, this old Russian lady who looks after her girls and is obviously the only reason why these women have even half as good a life as they do, because she's so, loving to them. She's their mother, as they say. It's like a maternal figure for them. She runs the kitchen, she gives them treats, she looks after them, and Piper has just insulted her pride and joy, her food. She fucked up. And yeah, it's not good. And straight after that, you get a scene of Piper going to see this guy Caputo, who is the head guard, I believe, at this point. And because she was told by the ladies in the intro room where they were told to show her the ropes, they said, "Go see Caputo if you want to make a phone call. You got to set up your pack number and it's going to take a while. Go see Caputo. Helps if you cry. He's a bit of a softie. He'll let you make a phone call." So she does. She goes in, she sees him, and she cries, and he just says, "Make a phone call, you got 2 minutes." And yeah, she does. She makes a phone call to Larry and kind of cries a bit about how weird it all is in here and how she's sitting with white people and she hasn't spoken to anyone that wasn't white. And they make a joke about, "Are you joining the Aryan nation?" And she says, "No, I don't think so." And she's all scared and freaked out. And Caputo looks like he feels sorry for her legitimately. You can see he's not a bad person. But he does, he does make her hang up because he does have to show authority. And he says, "Hang up the phone after 2 minutes," and he makes her leave and he hands her a bottle of shampoo and says, "There you go. Good night." And then he tells her, "Close the door on your way out." And then you get this scene where he pulls out Vaseline and he starts seeing him take his belt off, and then the camera basically pans to the desk of it moving as if something's knocking into it. Because yes, he is a disgusting little man who masturbates constantly in his office, probably to the thought of the women under his care all day. Now I could say, there's nothing inherently wrong about that other than the fact that he's doing it at work. So long as he keeps it to himself, that's the sort of thing where it's not really good, but it's not really illegal either. It's better than him actually harassing them or doing anything if he does it in his own time. Doing it at work is probably not great. It kind of makes his office a bit gross and unprofessional, but yeah, he was at least professional with the women. Then it's the next day, Piper wakes up, they do the count, where the guards come through and you gotta stand outside your bunk and they check your bunks and they come and count, make sure everyone's still there. So they do that, and then in the line you see this chick, Sophia, who, it's pretty obvious looking at her that this is a transsexual. This is not a regular woman. This is obviously a very manly looking woman. And the whole thing with Sophia is that she's a transsexual, and her story you see later on, she used to be a fireman. She went through a lot of stuff. She's now in prison because of other crimes she committed. It's weird because you kind of... It's one of those things what do you do with transsexuals when it comes to prison? Because I know a lot of people say they shouldn't be in female prisons, but I can say that, if they still have a dick, yeah, they probably shouldn't be, because they're going to get abused by the women or they're going to abuse women. One way or the other, it's not going to be nice. But they make it quite clear in the show a bit later that she doesn't have that anymore. Sophia has done the full surgery. She is a full woman. But she was born a man, and it's quite obvious to look at her. She still has the bone structure and all that. She's probably a hell of a lot stronger than most of the women in there. Which is why a lot of people argue that men that become women like that shouldn't be in female prisons because they're stronger. What if Sophia decided to attack them? It could take 3 or 4 of the other women to even attempt to stop her because she still has the bone structure and strength of a man. God damn, my Facebook just beeps. But she still has the bone structure of a man. And it's hard because it's also at the same token, you could not put her in a male prison because she would be abused by all the males in there. Because as much as they might not like transsexuals either, they're desperate. Some of them have been there for life, or some of them have been there for years, haven't seen a woman in a long time. You can't put someone like her in a cell with men like that. So where do you put them? The system obviously doesn't even have enough money to run what it has, so it can't open up special prisons for the minority of transgenders that there are. It's a hard subject. They don't really go into it in the show very much at this point. They sort of do later, but at this point they kind of, she makes it clear at this point, she's a hairdresser. She's fiddling with Piper's hair at first. That's how they meet. And she says, don't go to Danita, which I don't think you ever actually see Danita, but she apparently runs another hair salon. And Sophia runs the other one. So she's like the hairdresser, and everyone goes to see her. No one really has a problem with it. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting that they decided to introduce her in the first episode. She does add a lot of interesting things to the show, especially later. There's a few storylines where Sophia plays a key role where you really, really see the broken down side of the prison underfunded system. And then Piper gets a special meal for lunch. A special meal from Red. And yeah, it's not nice. It is just a bloody tampon between 2 buns with nothing on them. And it is horrible. And basically this is Piper's punishment for telling Red that the food was disgusting. Red is going to starve her. And they're all sort of laughing at this point. They all start cracking up laughing when they see it. All the other ladies at the table, they say, oh, you gotta find a way to make it right with Red. And you can see what they do with the camera. They really show it. Like, they zoom in on people's faces to really make it feel like... I don't know if any of you guys have ever had a panic attack or had anxiety issues, but it really, I have before, and this really shows it. Like, the zoom in on their faces, the way the background noise seems to just get louder, the way their voices seem to be equal in sound to everything in the background, it's just all so overwhelming. She's got one lady telling her, you gotta go to laundry today, make sure you get the good uniforms, make sure to test it all out so you know the elastic isn't shit. And another one's telling her, 10 minutes till after you're done here, you got 10 minutes, I'll see you at orientation. Another one's telling her something else, another one's saying something to her, just all the voices are just building up and she can't understand it all, and with the camera so close to their faces and the sound effects they do, it really makes you feel like, oh god, you're just like her at that moment. Watching it, you can feel the anxiety. She's not okay. She doesn't have food. She's insulted and fucked up with the kitchen staff. Everyone's telling her too much. It's all too overwhelming. So she basically gets up and runs, and they tell her to just put your tray away and go. And she goes. And she runs. And you can't blame her. She's having an outright panic attack. And honestly, I think I would too. Prison is a hard place. And if you have had that kind of run at the start, you're not going to enjoy it. And you're not meant to, but it's going to be hard. It's such a reality change. I would argue even more so for people like Piper. Yes, the underprivileged people that are already involved in crime and stuff, it's bad for them too to go to prison, but at least, like I said earlier, they're used to being abused. They're used to cops treating them like shit. They're used to being treated like nothing, being treated like a number. They can sort of adjust to it better because that's just their life. They've never had any kind of privilege or wealth or anything to them. Piper has. She came from a middle-class family. She has never experienced this, and suddenly for 2 days it's all in her face. So I'd actually argue the shock of this into her system is worse than what a lot of them are feeling. So her having attacks like this, I can fully understand. So she literally goes outside, as you can see here, she goes outside to the back of the prison area where there's the cool room, I guess, where they do deliveries. And she's leaning against it, and she's breathing really heavily, not handling herself. And she holds her knees and she's looking at the ground. There's a bit of a puddle on the ground from obviously something defrosted leaking or whatever. And you see a reflection of someone coming nearer, and 2 boots step in front of her, and she sort of looks up to see who it is while she's still breathing really heavy, having a panic attack. And it's Alex, the chick from 10 years in her past that helped her commit crimes and got her in here. That she, at this point you don't know, but she hasn't seen her for like 8 years or something. Like, this was all years ago. She has not seen Alex. They broke up. This is history. And suddenly they're face to face in the prison mid-panic attack. And Piper just screams. Panic attack just gets the complete best of her. She just outright screams. She's done. She can't handle anything more. They don't really show what happens. Like, she screams and then the credits start rolling, and in the next episode they kind of say that everyone calls her the Screaming Lady now. I don't know, I presume guards must have come out and separated Alex from her, probably thought she was under attack or something, and then, I don't know, put her back in the cell. They didn't really, go over a whole lot of it. But yeah, and that is the first episode. And I gotta be honest, when I first saw the ads to this show, I thought, it doesn't look that interesting. It looks like a chick flick. I was thinking, it's gonna be one of those shows, it's gonna be all drama, and it is a lot of drama, but there's a lot of comedy. And there's a lot of interesting things in it about the prison system and about different lifestyles, and I think it's a lot more compelling because it's based on Piper Kerman's book. Like, I think a lot of these characters are real people, or based on real people, I should say. Obviously, the names probably aren't all the same, but they're based on real people, which makes it more interesting because, these side characters and stuff and the way they are, these are real people. This is exactly what it was like. It makes it more compelling. These are not made-up people. And that, to me, makes it interesting. I love all that. This is a show I didn't think I would like, and I went into it not thinking much of it. And I came out of the first episode thoroughly ready to watch basically the whole first season in like a week. And I think I did. Like, that was when I first started going out with my girlfriend. And, like, that's what we did. We would go out, we would, do a few things, we'd get some food, or we'd go somewhere to hang out, and then we'd come back to my place and we'd have dinner, and we'd watch like 3 or 4 episodes of this before I took her home. That was how we dated for like the first... This show literally is how I met my girlfriend. Well, not met, but how I started being with my girlfriend. We watched this show together. Hilariously. Now it's finished. Like, years later, we live together. We've been together over 5 years now, and this show's just now finishing up, and it's a really good show. This pilot is also really powerful. Like, a lot of shows have decent first episodes, or average ones, or you're like, okay, I could sort of see the potential. This show really sold it. Like, the first episode, by the time it ends, like I said, you're hooked. I'm not even someone who's generally into this sort of stuff, and I had to see the rest. This first episode is really, really well done. But yeah. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I will say the later seasons of this show, I'm not as big a fan of. It is interesting, but definitely I think the first 2 or 3 seasons are my favourite. This stuff is just great. This is I think it's because it's all new. Later on, when Piper starts to adjust to prison life, it's not as compelling to me. I like when it's all new and a shock. But anyway, holy Christ, I've been talking for nearly 50 minutes. Seems doing these series is going to be easy, except now I have to work out where to put pictures over my voice for the next few hours while I edit this. But thank you for watching, and thank you for listening to me rant. And I'll probably end up doing an episode 2 to this, and I promise I will do a Game of Thrones one. So thank you, and goodbye for now.